Hello, my friends. I have been asked a lot over the years. Well, both of the years. We're 2 years old at Giant Crank Games here. What units are good and what units are bad in StarCraft II Wings of Liberty? I've been asked this so many times that I've decided that we're going to make a tier list. Now, this is for specifically the campaign only. I don't really care about 1 versus 1 Wings of Liberty or, 4 versus 4. That doesn't matter. So obviously we're only going to be looking at the Terran units, and we're going to talk about what is good, what is bad, why, and what context makes the things good. Because there's a lot of things that seem on paper like they're going to be really good, and then they're just garbage. And that is definitely an important part of it. And then there's things that seem like they're going to be bad and actually have some really nice uses. So the way that I'm going to be doing it is that S tier is consistently amazing things. Just absolutely killer all the time. You basically always want this unit. If you get it, you're not going to be in trouble. A tier is going to be inconsistently amazing or consistently solid, like really good. Not like not overpowered, but I mean, you're pretty happy to get it consistently. Then it's just kind of down from that. So B tier is going to be inconsistently solid or consistently good, inconsistently good or consistently average, inconsistently average or consistently bad. And that's kind of going to be how we go. So let's start off with, I don't know, something from the barracks. I don't really have a set order or anything for this. Where is the Marine? That is the War Pig, but where is the Space Marine himself? Space Marine. Everyone knows the Marine is S tier. Marine is the best unit, not because it can do everything better than everything else, but because every composition works with Marines. They hit ground, they hit air, they hit pretty hard. Both of their upgrades are very, very good on the armory. Stimpack obviously is incredible. The combat shields is a huge HP increase, and they're both very cheap. I'm going to be factoring the the cost of armory upgrades. Those upgrades are really, really cheap. You can fit them into most builds. The Marine just works everywhere. It is amazing. Number 2, we're going to go for the Diamondback. The Diamondback is a weird unit, and I'm going to actually throw it into C tier, unfortunately. I really don't want to. I like the Diamondback a lot, but it has a couple problems. The first one is that it is a factory tech lab unit. That combination is very rough because you are competing with the siege tank. And that means you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the siege tank in some way. Being an anti-armor unit doesn't really do that. The second problem is moving while firing. Moving while firing is awesome. If you're playing in a mod that, makes it so the Wraith can move while fire, or the Hellion or something like that, so it has stuff to work with, that's really good. However, when the Diamondback is the only unit you have that can move and fire, well, every single mission in the campaign, at least on Brutal, has just air units chilling out, doing stuff. So you have this immense level of mobility, but you don't have the ability to actually fight the things that you mobile yourself into. And then it costs 4 supply. The siege tank only costs 3, and the Diamondback costs 4. It is a scam. It should not cost as much. It should probably be reactorable. The Diamondback just gets treated unfairly, and it sucks. Let's go for something on the starport next. Maybe Mr. Viking. I'm going to say that the Viking is a very nice... between these two, it's pretty tough. I'm going to say A tier. So the Viking is really good in that it absolutely dominates the skies. It's got huge range. It does damage in an area. Both of those upgrades are pretty expensive, which is kind of a knock against it. Whenever you actually get a bunch of Vikings and you need them, they are so good at what they do. The problem is that there's not actually a whole large number of missions where you need the Viking. And that's kind of problematic. Actually, I'm going to knock it down to B tier. I'm sorry, because I I really do like the Viking. However, what I personally find in Wings of Liberty is that for the large majority of missions, you don't actually want the Viking with the upgrades. What you want is... Where's the Hell's Angel? Oh no! I thought I had all the mercenaries. Oh, is there more? No, there's not more. Oh, I don't see it. Well... Let's pretend that the Hell's Angels is on A tier and the Viking is on B tier. Because Hell's Angels are amazing. It is really cheap to unlock them. They are better than Vikings in every single way, and you get 3 charges of them, which means that you can use them as your dedicated anti-air force, and it just works out so nicely. Let's jump over to Mr. Marauder. The Marauder, I'm going to say, is A tier, only for concussive shell. Marauder's expensive. You need to throw a tech lab onto a barracks to get some. The HP is fine. It's bulky enough, but it's not like superbly bulky. 1 base armor is okay, but the area of effect slowdown against Zerg and against Protoss is so good. When you toss a couple Marauders, it's just so difficult for Zealots, Lings, and Banelings to touch you, and those are some of the scariest units in the game. Let's go with the Medivac. Medivac is going to be a solid C tier. Problem with the Medivac is that the missions, for the most part, are not super well designed for it. Like, its healing ability is alright, however the medic's healing ability is better and they cannot heal the same target at the same time. And that's a little bit of a downer. And then you have to have a starport, which doesn't really fit in with your bio. It doesn't get the armor upgrades that your bio does, like the medic does, and its healing rate is slower. I think I said that. It's just, it kind of sucks. And then there's just not that many missions where it's actually good. They just didn't make many good dropping missions, unfortunately. And the orbital strike upgrade, the top upgrade of the Protoss lab research, if you don't get tech reactor, is basically a dropship wherever you need, except it can fit a lot more than 8 units at a time. So the dropship is, it's just unfortunate. It is a unit that is actually pretty good, however it doesn't have a place. A unit that is always good is the Ghost, S tier. The only, when is the Ghost bad? I don't know, Maw of the Void? It's so overpowered. With, is that 8 range? Yeah, it has 6 base range, 2 more from the upgrade. It gets huge vision range from that upgrade as well. I believe the longest vision range in the game. So you don't get caught off guard. You have a whole long sniper range. You have Snipe itself, which invalidates all Zerg forces. And then you have just good, solid damage. It hits really hard against light targets, which means that things like carriers actually get absolutely owned. The interceptors can't survive against it. Zealots can't survive against it. Templar cannot survive against the snipe. It's really good against Zerg. It's really good against Protoss. And the late game doesn't have a whole lot of scary Terran. Really, the only late game mission with Terran is Media Blitz. And you got the Odin for that. I think a surprising unit is going to be Jackson's Revenge. I don't think the BC, actually, I guess I should go for the BC first. BC is going to be C tier. It's like, okay. When you get a bunch of BCs, it's really hard to lose. But it's actually kind of hard to get to that point. The enemy, like, the BCs kill stuff so slow for how much they cost. Their DPS is just not particularly high. Their range is pretty low. Yamato is great. And both of their upgrades are really lackluster. The missile pods in particular, very, very underwhelming. And of course, defense matrix is alright, but it's almost always better to just Yamato the target. Now you could argue that it just means that, you don't have to get the upgrades. And that's why it's not D tier, because you can toss a couple of these bad boys out and they're alright. However, Jackson's Revenge, I'm going to put in A tier. I actually think that it's really, really strong. Once it's off cooldown, I almost always think it's right to grab one. It hits really hard. Having a Yamato cannon is really, really nice. It does a whole lot of tanking for your forces. And most importantly, You don't have to build it. It doesn't have a huge build time. I think it's 90 seconds for a Battlecruiser. Jackson, doesn't matter. Let's go for some tech units next. We're going to hit up the Raven. Raven is B tier. The Raven has a whole lot of very powerful things going on. The auto turret is, it's not very good. It lasts for 3 minutes. It's got a lot of HP, but it does like no damage. It's very clunky and fiddly to use in a way that's not super strong. Point defense drone is quite powerful in specific circumstances. However, generally in the campaign, projectile units are not the scariest thing. It's generally stuff like Banelings, Ultralisks, Colossus, and none of those are blocked. Siege tanks, none of those are blocked by point defense drone. And then the Seeker missile is alright. It's very, very expensive to use. So all in all, I think the Raven is a lot scarier when you have to fight it, but making them on your own, it's pretty average. And I'm going to say the same about the Science Vessel. Now this might come as a surprise because I almost always go for vessels instead of Ravens, but really I think that they're very similar in power level. It's just you don't have to use the vessel. You know, it's got the autocast heal, so you might as well just put it with your army and not micro it. So, and if you have two things on par with each other, then I'm going to take the easy answer and, you know, work on using my other stuff. War Pigs, I'm going to say, are A tier. They are not as accessible as the Marine. The Marine is super, super easy. You just push out whenever, especially in the very, very early stages. Even if you're going mech, having some Marines inside of a bunker, for example, in the very early stages of a mission, very important. Very powerful way to stay safe. The War Pig is obviously better than the Marine, and that is a big step up for it. However, you don't have them early, and that is one of the things that the Marine does that most everything else doesn't. So it's a little bit worse. Hammer Securities, on the other hand, is going to be in the same place as the Marauder. I actually like Hammer Securities better than the Marauder, because you don't have to get that tech labbed barracks. If you're just going pure reactor barracks for Marine Medic, you can toss these guys out into the composition, no problem, and you get the benefit from that concussive shell. And then I'm going to say something surprising. I guess we'll go for Firebat first. Firebat's the first D tier. I've tried so hard to make this unit good, and it just is not. It dies so quickly. It's got the same durability as a Marauder, I believe. Juggernaut plating is okay. However, they basically never get to attack and their damage output is really, really low. That plus requiring that tech labbed barracks is a real, real negative. And then is the elite, the Devil Dog. I'm going to put Devil Dog in B. I actually think the Devil Dogs are pretty good. In most missions, if I'm going bio, I will buy the Devil Dog and I will toss it down. They have a bunch of extra health compared to the Firebat, and I found that they just don't die. The Firebat's on this weird cusp where it's supposed to be super tanky, but against a lot of scarier compositions, it ends up dying pretty quickly. The Devil Dogs, on the other hand, I find a lot of the time take a good number of hits from stuff like Immortals, and then they just survive with some medic healing. Really, really nice unit, really good. Medic, I'm also going to say, is B tier. The Medic is obviously incredibly potent with the Marine. However, it's not... If you're playing, for example, a Sky style, or if you're playing a Factory style, having early Marines is always good. It's super helpful. You can fold them in. You can't do that with the Medic. It is specifically bio only, and is specifically very gas intensive. Both of those reduce its flexibility compared to its contemporary bio people by a lot. Let's go with the Hellion next. Hellion is another D tier. The reason the Hellion is D tier is because the Vulture exists. There's not... I don't know what they were thinking. Like, it doesn't do anything better than the Vulture. In theory, it does that damage in an area, but there's not really any missions where that is more important than having something like Spider Mines. And the greater single target damage of the Vulture means it's a lot more flexible. The Hellion can only deal with small groups of a lot of units, which is basically only Zerglings. The Vulture, on the other hand, is cheaper, has AoE in this form of spider mines, and can actually help fight larger targets because it does that higher single target damage. So let's grab the Vulture and see where that goes. I'm going to put that right in B tier. It is a great mineral dump for any sort of mech type strategy. Having the mine ability is very nice. The mine explosion radius, I can't really tell for the most part how good it is. I'm sure it's fine. The ability to rebuild spider mines is alright. It's not necessarily better or worse to just get a new Vulture, but it's okay. It's a little bit of flexibility and it's not a very expensive upgrade. I think it's 60,000 credits. All in all, I think it is a pretty good unit. It's really just that factory tech is not as strong as barracks tech. So you're committing to a strategy that is inherently weaker, so it's not going to be as important or as powerful. Predator is D tier. I'm sorry. We've tried so hard to make the Predator work. It does not work. The Predator is just garbage. I really, really wish the Predator was good. I can't figure it out. Where's the siege tank? We're gonna get the siege tank. Siege tank is A tier. Maelstrom rounds is incredibly powerful. That is the ability or the upgrade that allows you to do 40 more damage to a single target when it's attacking. The siege tank is very, very reliable as a defensive option. It's not super good for pushing, but even then, there are times where it is. If you can sit at the bottom of a ramp and set up some siege tanks and then start pulling enemies into you, it is incredibly strong. And of course, when you get that reduced splash damage upgrade, it's great. However, it is outclassed by the Siegebreaker, which has a very similar benefit to the Hammer Securities, where you don't actually have to get that factory with a tech lab on it and be using the production time. Siegebreakers are S tier because I think every single mission in the game, if you are struggling with it, if you buy a Siegebreaker the moment that it comes off cooldown, it will make that mission easier. Unless you're like already dead or something. Even all in air, I think Siegebreakers are worth buying on. And that says a lot. Let's, oh man. Keep the D tier going. The Wraith. It doesn't do anything. It's got some good anti-air. However, the Viking and the Hell's Angel so drastically outclass it in that category that I don't know what to do with it. It feels so bad. I've never played with a Wraith in the base campaign and been like, yeah, this is awesome. It's just like, it's painful. It's super expensive. It requires a tech lab. Once again, that's always a big negative. And it drains your gas reserves. It works a little bit better if you have science vessels to keep it healed, but then you don't get the benefit of cloak. The damage reduction ability on it is a 20% chance to ignore damage instead of 20% increased durability. So it's super RNG. Inconsistency is really bad. And then it's got like a bonus energy upgrade that's worse than the cloak duration upgrade on the Banshee. It gets the worst of all worlds. Wraith is another unit that I really want to be good, and it is treated not okay. Banshee, on the other hand, is great. I'm going to put it in B tier, only because like it does a lot of stuff. It's the Shockwave missile batteries upgrade is pretty darn good, makes the damage AoE in a line very, very, very hard for the enemy to engage Banshees with ground forces. It is a bit weak to anti-air, obviously, and it is kind of made of paper. That is really the biggest problem with the Banshee, is it is expensive, and if you lose it, you've lost a pretty important unit. And that is why the Mercenary Dusk Wing goes up a tier. It's really, really great, because it has that increased durability. Honestly, the extra damage and stuff is fine. However, the extra durability, the HP, is incredible. I find that mercenaries just live so much longer, and that makes the game way, way easier. All right, we are hitting that home stretch. Let us jump on into the walkers. First, we're going to go for the Thor. Thor, I'm going to put in C tier. It is very slow. It is incredibly expensive. Its upgrades are really, really expensive. And a lot of the time, it's just not necessary. You're spending a lot of money on a huge amount of firepower that in Wings of Liberty, I think that for the most part, mobility is almost always king. Now, in, for example, Brutal Plus that we're playing through right now, being able to punch through barriers and stuff with those siege cannons, really, really, really powerful. At least I assume. I haven't actually gotten to use it yet. However, that just doesn't come up that often in base Wings of Liberty. And its anti-air is garbage. Those stupid little rockets hit for like 2 damage apiece against anything that has armor. It's really, really good against, for example, like 15 mutas coming in. But that only happens on all-in air. And yeah, it can't deal with capital ships or anything like that, and it just feels really bad to have at that point. The Goliath, God, I don't want to put it in D tier. Oh, I don't want to put it in D tier. I'm going to put it in C tier just because I don't want to put it in D tier. The Goliath sucks. The Goliath has 125 HP, which is the same as a Marauder, but it costs 50% more. And it feels so much more vulnerable because it doesn't have that medic healing. It is made of paper. It gets torn through so quickly. Its anti-armored air is amazing until you get the Viking, at which point the Viking is just straight up better. And that's kind of the crux of the issue, where the Goliath has a couple different roles that it fills, but it's not a master of any of them. And it's not a unit that's easy to just toss into your army because of that, once again, the Tech Lab factory requirement. It makes it so hard. If you could reactor these bad boys out, they'd go up a tier because you would be able to throw them into a composition more easily. The other problem I have with them is that the range, +1 range on ground attack and +3 range on air attack, is locked behind an upgrade. And the unit is useless until it has that upgrade, which means that you can't just like be in the middle of a mission, know you need it, and then be able to grab it really quickly to fill that niche. You kind of just have to quit out of the mission and then hope you have enough money to buy the upgrade. And that's not good. Sorry, Goliath. Spartan Company is a tier up. It's a lot more durable. It really excels a little bit more at being able to take down those armored air units, and because those rockets do more damage, they're also better against stuff like mutas. I feel more comfortable grabbing Spartan Companies and throwing them into any composition. Just, oh no, my army died, I need to get some new stuff really quick. I'm going to go to the mercenary compound, hit whatever things I have. I probably have the Spartan Company because it's very cheap to unlock. And now I have an extra bit of bulk in my army. Nice to have. Spectre is going to be A tier. Permanent cloaking is busted. It is not as good as the Ghost. However, I'm trying to not judge it based on that, but instead of its own merits. The stun is really, really, really good. However, the Psylash, the channel damage Yamato cannon, is a bit more iffy. The channel is very long, and the Spectre tends to just die. For the most part, the targets that you'd want to snipe with it are just too hard to hit with it, and anything that you could hit with it is generally easier to hit with something else. So, it's alright. It also has less range and less DPS than the Ghost. I don't know why. It's not a great combat unit. While the Ghost can be thrown into a composition in order to support it, like a bio composition moving around with a bunch of ghosts in it is just a better composition, Spectres, on the other hand, are not as good as part of a generalist army. However, they have permanent cloak, they have nuke, and they have a stun. So they're definitely pretty solid. Reaper is C tier. Reaper kind of sucks. It is a high-risk, high-reward unit, which I'm not inherently opposed to. However, it is a very gas-expensive unit, and gas is the big resource here, so if you are giving up that gas, you're kind of in trouble if your gamble doesn't go your way. It's very, very good on some missions like Outbreak. In fact, I think it is the best unit for the mission Outbreak. However, in the later half of the campaign, it is so heavily and rapidly invalidated in basically every circumstance that I don't know why you would want it. Its anti-structure attack is good. However, it doesn't come up very often, and it's so squishy. It just blows up when anything looks at it. And you can't be investing your gas and stuff like that. It's just not sustainable. And for the final unit, we have the Hercules. I'm going to put the Hercules in B tier because I actually think that the Hercules is more viable as a dropship than the Medivac. Because you can put anything in it. It is obviously a pain in the butt to get to the Tech 2 because it requires a freaking fusion core. However, it has one benefit that is so massive. And that is that when it dies, the units fall out of it and take damage and get stunned instead of dying. That makes it so much safer to go for drop play. Because for the most part, the Medivac is just, it is such a gamble to do any drops. The game loves throwing a bunch of spore crawlers or a bunch of photon cannons, some Phoenix, missile turrets, everything. And if any of those Medivacs get popped out of the sky, everything in it dies. It's a huge risk. The Hercules, on the other hand, makes these drop plays much, much more reliable. And honestly, I don't know how much you pay. Actually, if anyone has made it this far, if you could do the math, how much are you paying per drop slot on the Medivac versus the Hercules, including buying the fusion core? I'd be really interested in that because I actually think that the Hercules might be cheaper than getting an equal number of Medivacs per drop slots. It fits so many things, and that is really powerful. All right, yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with this tier list. I might switch if I were to switch something, it might be like move the Marauder. No, I think the Marauder's fine. For the most part, yeah, I think everything is pretty reasonable there. We have a good curve. The overpowered stuff is at the top, the garbage is at the bottom. Yeah, I think this is what I think units are in StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. Thank you for watching, guys. If you are interested in my opinions on the Heart of the Swarm units, then please tell me, and I will make that probably tomorrow, because I'm really just killing time until Legacy of the Meme comes out. It really needs to be finished soon. I was told that it would be ready at the beginning of the month, and it is the end of the month. Oh well. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.